Thanks for staying with us, and Merry Christmas yet again. So as you're celebrating, eating or drinking, our responsibility is to bring up what's happening in the polity and make you have as much fun as possible. And today on the program, the president has been in office for at least 7 months since he was sworn in on May the 29th. So we want to assess how well he's done, or some things he's not done quite well. Our guest will be doing and extracting all of this as I pose questions to them. And I'm being joined via Zoom by a former spokesperson of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council, Mr. Daniel Bwala. Mr. Bwala, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas indeed. I see you've been enjoying the United Kingdom for quite a while. When are you coming back?
I'm coming back when our hope is renewed.
All right. Also joining us in our Abuja studio is an APC senatorial candidate in the last election from Benue State, Mr. Daniel Onjo. Mr. Daniel, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much.
And you look really like you are going for some event after now, but we'll find that out after the show. But for now, let's focus on the conversation. Mr. Daniel, let me come to you, Mr. Bwala. Professor Shoenka says he waits for at least a year before reviewing an administration's performance. What would be your 7 months general overview of President Bola Tinubu's government? For a starter.
Sadly, I'm asked to intervene on a Christmas day when I should be talking about hope, peace, love, and everything. I'll try my best for today. But the administration of President Bola Tinubu in the last 7 or 8 months is characterized by mixed emotions. Mixed emotions because there are good times and there are bad times. Let me start with the good times. What I mean, the positive in President Bola Tinubu's administration in the past 8 months is what I have been hearing from his mouth at least. One is that he said, we asked for this job and you can blame us. We are determined to work, we will get to work and no excuses. To me, that is positive because I hardly hear leaders say something like that. Secondly, when he was confronted by certain things that were not working, he said, we're working hard, we will try our best, that we asked for the job. So this acceptance of responsibility to me is a positive sign at least. So let me go to the other part of the emotions, the negative. You see, in the past 8 years, before these 7 months, Nigerians had to endure the leadership and administration of All Progressives Congress, in which they were told to be hopeful and to be patient, and they waited for 8 years and have not seen anything. Now we are hearing New Year, Christmas messaging, telling Nigerians to be patient, and to me that is a bad message. A bad message because one, in the whole of this world, apart from the United States of America, I read an article somewhere, there is no any other country that defeated or is defeating the spirit of the Nigerian people in terms of patriotism in every facet of their lives. When you look at science and technology, you look at Nigerians at the top. When you look at entertainment, you see Burna Boy, Davido, Wizkid, you see them up ahead. If you look at education, you see the records Nigerians are breaking everywhere. Even in the administration of justice, judges in civilized worlds are coming. People in the hierarchy of power in government around the world. And this is the best way citizens can demonstrate their patriotism, that they have the willingness to work, and that if the opportunities are created, they will present their country in the big brightest of the light. What is actually left is the responsibility of the government, sadly. So all of this speech about a Nigeria should be patient is what the government needs to be speaking to itself. Why? Because if you look at the last 7, 8 months, Nigerians were thrown into deeper stress, deeper problems. And let me even tell you, last week, there was an annual program in Yaba where the psychiatric hospital in Yaba reported over 100% intake of people with mental problems. This is due to hardship. You have seen in the last 7 months how people are jumping to the lagoons, how people are shooting and killing themselves because of the hopelessness of the situation that Nigerians have gone into. 2 things accounted for that. Some of the problems President Tinubu did not create, right? Nigerians knew it. That's why in the election they were looking for solution. He came up with the message that he's going to renew their hope. Whatever happens, he became the president of Nigeria. What Nigerians expected was to begin to see measures, steps, decisions, and actions that will commence the amelioration of the hardship that they were confronted. Instead, the government came up with two policies that created the mess that we're in. One is the policy of removal of subsidy, and two, the floating of the naira. These two policies are not bad in themselves, but they were ill-timed and ill-executed without a thorough and broad-based plan to cushion the effect. Because when the subsidy was removed, these are the things that happened to the common man in Nigeria. Immediately, the prices of items in the market went up. And by November last month, the food inflation is about 34.2%. The general inflation is 28.2%. This was the result of the removal of subsidy. Now, so transportation has gone up, food has gone up. Even in the private sector, rather than increasing the salary of people, they had to retrench a lot of them in order to compete. So Nigerians actually went down because their income has not gone up. Meanwhile, the cost of living has gone up. Then they floated the naira, which now affected 90% of the youth, especially those who are schooling. They could no longer access Forex at the official rate, and wherever they were, immediately the value of whatever they had for schooling went down to 30%. This is fact. So whether you like President Tinubu or you don't like him, these facts cannot change. These facts are happening. And what is the posture of government that is asking for patience? Extravagancy, mismanagement, and lack of accountability. I don't need to go further, but for you to look at the trip to Dubai is one of them. For you to look at the splashing of the money to buy SUV for legislators is another. You don't see it anywhere in the world. You also look at the way and manner in which recovered money from looters are not accounted to the Nigerian people. Okay. These are facts. These are the things confronting us as a country. So how do Nigerians come in to be patient when Nigerians for the past 8 years and 8 months have actually demonstrated patience? That's why there are no people on the street, no riot, no breaking of law and order. What more can you ask for the Nigerian people, from the Nigerian people?
All right, Mr. Onja, I'm sure you heard what Mr. Boala said. I'm sure you have reaction. But let me read a line of the president's Christmas message on the backdrop of what Mr. Boala said. The president said, "Be confident that by the strength of our joint endeavor, we will shortly emerge into a new dawn of prosperity, peace, I think irreversible progress." Now, I want you to juxtapose that statement with the action taken so far in terms of the programs and policies of the government, like Mr. Boala has highlighted. Do you think Nigerians share that optimism, or they even believe the president at all that we're going to come out of this?
I think a large number of Nigerians share in that view and have that confidence. I'm glad that Mr. Boala had also admitted on two grounds of what the posturing of Mr. President is on this particular subject we are discussing in terms of the polity and the well-being of Nigerians. First of all, for a leader to accept or take responsibility for the action or inaction of government that has invariably immersed the citizens into plethora of social, political, and economic quagmire, which had been a cumulative effect of bad governance in time past. I think that leadership is visionary. I think that leadership is focused. I think that leadership is determined to turn around the situation. Let it not sound like I am insensitive to the hardship in the country, or so that I'm also not adjudged as one of the persons who is calling for patience. But patience is necessary. As an economics, I know a term referred to as time lag for policy implementation. It is the duration from the policy pronouncement to its materialization or his completion and the effect. So it is not magic. Some of these policies can be short-term, some can be long-term. It depends. So like you see for the social welfare packages that are being given to cushion the effects of this fuel subsidy removal, these are in the short term. But we have other policies that are also in the long term, and it will require the patience of Nigerians. You see, there can never be gain without pain. We have, as citizens, seen even worse situation. Let's not pretend about it. And let's also be careful not to be misleading the general public on the about the policies of government and its direction. You will not compare, or you can't attempt to compare Nigeria of today with Nigeria of yesteryears. We've grown astronomically in population, but unfortunately, like I say, because of bad leadership, there haven't been infrastructural and technological advancement that would be commensurate with the population size of Nigeria to support our growth and development. And I think that is the area we should even focus on more. It is not about the fuel subsidy removal. Every well-meaning Nigerian knows that it was a very, very, very right decision that has been taken in the right direction. The question we should be asking is what we make out of the removal of the subsidy. I think Mr. President had given the direction strongly enough. All we need to do is to be patriotic enough to have confidence in Mr. President, support his administration. Elections have come and gone, tribunals have come and gone. I think it's time for governance proper, and it behoves on all citizens to be patriotic enough to support a president who has shown determination and had also in time past proven his ability and capability. More so, he is a public-spirited leader who knows his onions and what is salt in politics. So he knows exactly the direction he's going. And I think for a man to have taken his time and not been too desperate, sat behind, the polity, directed a lot of political activities and affairs that have benefited a lot of Nigerians. For example, Lagos State. We all know that it is, even though it's a microcosm of Nigeria, but it's a social, political, and economic hub of the country. If a man had led that state, and severally after, those who came after him also told the line of saying policy direction, and Lagos is where it is today, I think all we need to do is to be patient with the same man, because definitely he's going to deliver on his promises. He has proven his methods before. He has proven his capability before. So we don't need to doubt him. And I think we must also commend him because of his feedback mechanism. This is the first time a president is retracting or withdrawing from decisions because of public outcry, because of public preponderance or public opinion in a particular direction. That means he is actually keeping tabs with the activities that are going on in the nation. For me, that is what is more important. Because we have situations where...
If I rebut him, my apologies, so that we can take as many questions as possible. Let me head back to the UK, London. Mr. Boiler, I'm sure you heard what he said, but the challenge Nigerians always have, Nigerians will be paying sacrifices. Every time, pain before gain. We've had austerity measures. Nothing has ever come up and eventually come down. And I used to debate this with some economists, that what do you mean in a layman's term by stability? Is it that at some point the things are going to come down, our income will measure up, and they're looking at a hybrid situation? So my natural question, like Nigerians will ask, every time an administration comes, they'll say, we need to endure a bit, it's going to get better. When will Nigerians ever see a better tomorrow?
So that is the good question that I think is in the mind of an average Nigerian, especially if you're on social media. And let me clarify some point. You see, when people talk about be patient and wait, you have to look at the time frame within which the public officer himself is expected to execute his work. The president has just been voted into a term of 4 years. He's 8 months into the term, which constitutes 31.8% of the total time that he has. He has less than 70% of the time in government. When is that going to happen? 2, when President Buhari took over in 2015, it was the same language. Nigerians patiently followed. Today, tomorrow, they finish the first term, they enter the second term. When there is a fundamental problem with policy, time is irrelevant. 30 years, it cannot work. Most economics in Nigeria, and I'm glad Mr. Onje is an economist, let him challenge it. You look at budget, Price Water Cuba, you look at Riwani, most economics that I have listened to, their analysis on the budget of the president, with which he's expected to execute the agenda, they have faltered it flat out. Now, let me tell you this. The policy that you said you want to change. Now, for the economics, talk about long-term and short-term. Every planning has 3 stages: immediate, mid-term, and long-term. What Nigerian people are crying because of this policy direction are matters that fall within the immediate, which is called intervention. For example, when you took out fuel subsidy, Nigerian people knew that you are going to be making about 9 trillion every month just by not giving the subsidy. And the president said the reason why he was taking out the subsidy is because the subsidy had always ended in the pockets of few people. He wanted Nigerian people to feel the impact. So what happens to the 9 trillion naira? For the past 8 months that they took out the subsidy, have you seen them providing cushioning effect that impact on those consequences of those policies? Because the consequences affect transportation, it affected feeding, healthcare, it affected every facet of life. Now, apart from the 2 billion given to the governors, for which most of them gave to their cronies and people, some even brought religious inclination into it, what more has the government done that generated the impact? There are some places who apply this kind of economic model. They will tell you when you do that, because you already saved money, not you are looking for money coming, you ought to have increased the salaries of workers by, say, if for transportation, by removing subsidy, an average worker is going to spend extra 15,000 in a month. Then maybe in feeding, because of rises of items, is going to spend extra 5,000, meaning 20. You look at other areas, you put them together, impact it into a salary. Do you need a long term to be able to do that? Secondly, they said the reason they are saving the money is so they can invest in infrastructure. In the past 8 months, tell me one infrastructure project that was laid on ground. Meanwhile, every month we're saving 9 trillion. This is in addition to the multiples of millions in naira, in pound, in dollars that have been recovered from looters and people who looted the treasury in the last administration. Tell me one program on ground that has impacted on the lives of the common people. There is no healthcare improvement in any capacity. So when you talk about long-term plan, you are talking, let's say, for example, if you are constructing a road from Lagos to Ibadan, you will say it is going to take 2 years before it will construct. I think people should see construction people on the side. Now, what about those areas for which the money has already been saved and you need to then release it to impact? In fact, even the planning and the implementation of these policies have been faulted. Let me take you to just the one of 4 days ago. They gave out subsidy to people traveling for Christmas, Lagos, blah, 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 blah. Have you seen the implementation? Less than 7% got impacted by that. A lot of people didn't get the money. Didn't get to access it. Up till the day that the implementation was to start, these same bosses and companies that are saying, we're still giving it at the already. So there will come a time when we'll interrogate implementation. But I am talking about intervention. Intervention is not a mid-term. Intervention is not a long-term. Intervention is immediate. What is the plan and the policy of the government? Meanwhile, why I say that Nigerian people are more patient than the politicians is that, meanwhile, on the part of government, look at the trip to Dubai and look at how much waste that was made. The average SUV for the lawmaker that costs about 150 or 60 million. You have 3 senators, for example, in a state. If you multiply 160 by 3 and devote this money to the 3 constituencies in that state, you can imagine how much it will go. Nobody's looking at that. The cost of government has been enlarged and increased. So we see Nigerians saying we have seen the movie before. We know where we're coming from. We want to see deliverables. We are tired of English, mathematics, economics, science, and technology. We want to see practical, doable, and the government needs to start by conducting itself. Most of the people appointed by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu have no competence, have no capacity, have no foresight. Only less than 5% of his ministers are actually working.
Yeah, Mr. Bola, we're going to come to that. It's a point I need to raise in terms of assessing the ministers so far. Let me go to our Abuja studio, Mr. Onje. Thank God I'm happy you're an economist. And what Mr. Bola is saying in essence is some of the policy pronouncement by this administration appears to be is like for the optics. That's the implication of some of the things he said, if I heard him correctly. And I've looked at the budget and the assumption. Since he came into office from 22 to now 28, about 6% or 5.7% increase in the inflation numbers, and then an ambitious 21% tapering down at the end of next year. Do you see that as a possibility, given those assumptions in the budget? Because if you can take from 28, which is November, at the end of December next year, it goes down to 21, that's a big deal. Do you see it happening? Are there things as an economist, fundamentals you're seeing that can make that happen? Mr. Boala said nothing is really going on.
Well, a lot of economic indices interplay for optimal results. He's talking about the immediate term, the midterm, and the long term. I agree with him on that, but he said he hasn't seen anything in the immediate time. So the immediate terms can certainly not be in terms of infrastructure. For example, if you want to build a rail network, you can't, because you have the logistics or the finances on ground, you can't attain it immediately. It has its duration or time for accomplishment. So you can't change it. You must follow the natural time so that we get it very clearly. But it's talking about immediate intervention, which has to be the social interventions that we're seeing, from the federal government. Of course, some of the governors also will need to be put to tax and held responsible for the situation we find ourselves in the country today. If the federal government had released funds to them to cushion the effects of this fuel subsidy removal, they almost rest of them squarely, to devise means and approach to the cushioning of this effect of fuel subsidy removal. It may appear to me that some of them didn't get the policy direction right. And there are a lot of misplacements of priorities. That is why it appears like nothing is happening in the system. But Mr. Boala, I think I differ with you on this. There are a lot of people out there who are benefiting from these social intervention programs. Perhaps they don't have access to the social media that you're talking about, like you, to come out and shout of what they are getting and the rest. Where government has tried, we must commend the government. But then I still want to address the issue of the inflationary gap. Now, Mr. President has been running on the budget of the last administration, even though government is continuity, but it doesn't necessarily translate to fitting in exactly into what his policy direction is. So he has presented budget for 2024, and we'll be looking forward to a lot of adjustment in the system in terms of infrastructure, in terms of social interventions. And the budget, to me, you say a lot of economics find or pick holes in them. For me, it looks quite promising. We don't begin to condemn a document that has not been put to test yet. We don't just look at it and then pick on some of the economic variables that have plunged us into the situation we are today and conclude because some of them, are present in the next document, it will be
all right, Mr. Onje,
and I also don't believe that Mr. President appointed incompetent hands into his administration. Like I say, it's too early in the day to begin to judge, the government, to begin to assess the government on performance on the scale that Mr. Bwala wants to talk about. I would rather say with these reforms that, ushered in this administration.
All right, Mr. Onje, I will have to butt in. My apologies. I will have to butt in because of
Mr. President. Because
Mr. Onje, if you can hear me, I will have to butt in. I will take that as your assessment of. It was supposed to be my next question, but apparently you've already responded your own way. That is too early, Mr. Bwala. You have just 30 seconds to land on your thoughts on the assessment of the ministers. I understand we need to go on a break, Mr. Bwala.
So let me say something that's very important before you go. For example, they talk about impacting with the budget. Now, the president has been traveling around the world, right, to bring foreign investors all over. And they come and give us promises, which I don't doubt that they were given the promises. Investors do like that. But no investor is a Father Christmas. Every investor that will come and invest in your country wants an enabling environment. Have you not noticed? GlaxoSmithKline and other foreign companies are exiting Nigeria. Why? Because they complain that the operating environment is not conducive for investment. Do you think those that were courting to come will not ask, why is it that those ones on ground are leaving? Over $800 million of foreign investment that came into the country, the people could not repatriate their capital. Now, I think that the government should be talking about what are those operating environments, the problems associated with operating environment that we need to do. You look at regulatory compliance. You look at the rule of law. You look at the will of government to execute what it says it will do. All of these things, nobody is paying attention. So it's all about fanfare. If I interrogate the budget, thank God, don't say right.
I'm so sorry. But just a quick one. He had alluded to the fact it's too early to assess the ministers. Is it too early for you?
How can it be too early to assess somebody? You mean that how long does it take to do a master's program? 1 year. You have 8 months. 8 months, technically in academic calendar, is 1 year. And you have 4 years to govern. You have nothing to point at in 8 months and you say it's too early. When will it be the right time to judge? That's why I said Nigerians will say we've seen the movie before.
Okay.
It was the same line of argument. I can, if not for time, I can tell you 3 countries, 3 from the developed world, 3 from the developing countries.
Unfortunately, Mr. Bwala, we don't have the time.
Within the space of 4 months to 6 months, they impacted.
All right, Mr. Bwala, unfortunately, we don't have the time. I really want to enjoy this conversation. I want to keep it going, but unfortunately, for want of time, Mr. Daniel Bwala, former spokesperson of the PDP Presidential Campaign Council, joined us via Zoom from the United Kingdom. Thank you, sir, for coming on the program. And Mr. Daniel Onje, APC senatorial candidate from Benue State. Gentlemen, thank you so much for your insight on the issue as we assess the president's 7 months in office. Thank you for coming on the program.